Not me.
That's not.
Oh,
What's up?
they need a sound check for,
No, no, there's no sound for the announcements. They're running, but there's no sound check at the
Waiting to do a little noodling? Oh.
Beautiful. Thank you. So good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Friendship United Methodist Church. My name is Kyung-hee Anashin. I'm pastor here in this beautiful congregation. It is not easy to be alone in this time of transition, even including the weather. But so we really need a community to be together. So I'm so grateful that you chose to worship with us this morning, whether you join us through Facebook or YouTube or in person. Your presence is a really gift to all of us and a blessing. And I trust that as we worship together and sing together and listen to the ancient words together, I trust that God's presence is not just you, and maybe the message that you will hear, you will get inspired and find some kind of direction in your life. That is my prayer for you. And as we begin our worship, I encourage you to indicate your presence with us. We have a very upgraded level of working together. There's a QR code you can find on the screen. Or also your paper printout program, you will find the QR code. If you have a smartphone, please take your phone out and angle at it, and then something will pop up, and then you can register your attendance with us. That's the one way will help us get connected to you. If you don't have that smartphone, we have a hard copy of connection card you will find in our Welcome Center. Also, please visit our Welcome Center. We have more information about what we are doing together. And also, you can visit our website, friendshipchurchumc.org. Today is a very special Sunday. We invited community elected leaders, so we will have Senate representatives, Senate senator will be with us. Also, one of us, township trustee, Tom Broxton, will join us right after worship service. So those who worship us through Facebook, if you remain on the Facebook, you will join us right away. Now, as we enter into this sacred space, and I'd like to remind you that this is a community of compassion and welcoming and inclusive. We want to grow together. We want to search many questions in our life together with you. We may not offer all those answers or solutions, but together as we seek, maybe we will have more meaningful conversation and find a meaning in our life here and now. With saying that, I encourage you to, if you are able, please stand and join us in our call to worship. The world belongs to God. How good it is, how wonderful. Love and faith come together. If Christ's disciples keep silent, open our lips, O God. Amen.
To be in the presence of God is to be in the presence of perfect love. The song reminds us it's better to be present in one day of perfection than in 1,000 days of whatever comforts this world has to offer.
How lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord Almighty. For my soul longs and even faints for you. For here my heart is satisfied within your presence. I sing beneath the shadow of your wings. Better is one day in your courts. Better is one day in your house. Better is one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. Better is one day in your courts. flesh cry out for you, the living God. Your spirit's water to my soul. I've tasted and I've seen. Come once again to me. I will draw near to you. I will draw near to you. Better is one day, better is one day, better is one day than thousands elsewhere. Better is one day, better is one day, better is one day than thousands elsewhere. Better is one day in your courts, better is one day in your house, better is one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. Better is one day in your courts, better is one day in your house, better is one day in your courts than the thousands elsewhere. Better is one day. One day.
Amen. Thank you. We have been all separated throughout the days, but we are here together because we believe God is good all the time. With that trust in our heart, let us welcome. No one is strangers as we worship together. So let us welcome and greet one another. Good to see you, Lynn. Good to see you, everyone. Good to see you again. Oh, there's people from the Facebook.
Halle, halle, hallelujah. Halle, halle, hallelujah. Halle, halle, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
Good morning. My name is Carolyn Jones. Let us pray. O gracious and compassionate God, whose love knows no bounds, we give thanks to those who provide love and support, who bring us both solace and joy, and who bring us closer to God. We grieve the loss of Carolyn Larson, servant of the Lord and beloved member of Friendship. We will miss her beautiful eyes, her beautiful smile, and most importantly, her beautiful spirit. But we rejoice that she has gone home to our Lord, and that gives us peace. O dear Lord, help those in our Friendship family who themselves, their loved ones, or their friends are struggling. Give them the strength to fight on through the fear, uncertainty, and pain. Let them know that they are not alone, that they can trust in you, and can count on the love and support of their Friendship family, because we cannot do it alone, and we are the body of Christ. And no wise and all-knowing God, we ask that you lend your wisdom and guidance to our church, community, and national leaders. Can at times seem like a thankless job, most often a difficult one, but it's rife with possibilities when approached with love, care, and thoughtfulness. May our leaders have the strength and courage to deal squarely with reality, make decisions to benefit the people that they have sworn to serve, and in so doing fulfill God's commission to love our neighbors as ourselves. Oh, gracious and wise God, help us to strive always to be the best that we can be, to love you and our neighbors with our whole hearts. And all this we ask through Jesus Christ, our Lord, Savior, and Redeemer. Amen. So please join me as we pray as Jesus taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Entire New Testament, there's probably no passage more beautiful or more meaningful than 1 Corinthians 13. This song is all about that.
If I spoke like an angel or foretold the future, if I could move mountains with faith, but I had no love in me, then I would be nothing. The mysteries and the knowledge would soon be erased. It wouldn't matter if I gave till my pockets were empty, but offered no love. I pray God would send me some faith, some hope, and some love. And the greatest is love. And the greatest is love. Yes, yes, the greatest is love. Ooh, I have faith and hope that the greatest is love. It is kind and enduring, it hopes and believes, rejoices in the truth, no evil it sees. You can't make it act rude, does not seek its own, love has no fear, it forgets any wrongs. Well, I once was a child, and I thought that I knew, but now I see clearly, I found it in you, some faith, some hope, and some love. And the greatest is love, and the greatest is love. Yes, 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 the greatest is love. Oh, I have faith and hope that the greatest is love. Yes, the greatest is love. Oh, the greatest is love. Oh, I have faith and hope that the greatest is love. And the greatest is love. And the greatest is love. Oh, I have faith and hope that the greatest is love. So abide in you always, faith, hope, and love. These three. And the greatest of these is love.
So Barbara is not here. Would you please?
Today's reading is from Mark chapter 9, verses 38 through 47. John said to Jesus, "Teacher, we saw someone throwing demons out in your name, and we tried to stop him because he wasn't following us." Jesus replied, "Don't stop him. No one who does powerful acts in my name can quickly turn around and curse me. Whoever isn't against us is for us. I assure you that whoever gives you a cup of water to drink, because you belong to Christ, will certainly be rewarded. As for whoever causes these little ones who believe in me to trip and fall into sin, it would be better for them to have a huge stone hung around their necks and to be thrown into the lake. If your hand causes you to fall into sin, chop it off. It's better for you to enter into life crippled than to go away with two hands into the fire of hell, which can't be put out. If your foot causes you to fall into sin, chop it off. It's better for you to enter life lame than to be thrown into hell with 2 feet. If your eye causes you to fall into sin, tear it out. It's better for you to enter God's kingdom with 1 eye than to be thrown into hell with 2. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
Before we begin, the song that you just heard, of course, the main word is written by Apostle Paul, but all the lyrics, adaptation, and the melody is done by Wayne Feathers. And the most touching story behind that thing is he composed this for his daughter's wedding. So it was a really touching story, and we don't need to worry about copyright when we sing that song. So, thank you, Wayne. Would you please join me in prayer? In these moments that following, O God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So I was fascinated to learn that all of us, whether race or ethnicity or religious affiliations or what language group you've grown up with, all of us are descended from a group of hominids who lived in southern Africa about 100,000 years ago. Maybe some of you are more knowledgeable about that, but this group of people soon spread across Africa, and then it didn't take long before some of them began migrating. So some of them migrated north and came up to the Land's Bridge, we call Middle East. And then some from there turned left to go to, we call Europe, and populated there. And some turned to right to go to Asia, India, and Southeast Asia, and some even crossed the ocean to get to Australia, and some even move up to far north and even to Bering Strait. So scholars tend to agree that the peopling of the Americas happened sometime around 25,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age, and some from Siberia across the Bering Strait, when the Bering Strait was a land bridge that had emerged from glaciers and continental ice sheets, froze enough of the world's water to lower sea level as much as 400 feet below what is today. And they scatter around North America and then Central America and South America. And you might have lots of questions, but you may wonder, why do they keep scattering around and moving around? And why does anyone want to even settle in that places like Siberia or Alaska, like the whole environment is inhospitable or even hostile for human living. And one reason that anthropologists tell us is that they were hunter-gatherers. And if you're hunter-gatherers, you rely your life on gathering, collecting food from the plants or from prey animals. So what you need is a land, a huge land. Problem is, you are not the only one. There are others like you. So soon you learn that you need to protect your territory from others. So you don't want others to come into your place and take away your food. So otherwise, your children will go hungry. So tribes were formed to defend their own people and force others out. So go somewhere else to get what you need. That's the message. And it makes sense that so these different people, tribes, developed ways of marking themselves to differentiate themselves from others, like tattoos on their bodies or paintings on their faces and some kind of different way of clothing. And so these work as a tribe markers. And then something else developed, anthropologists tell us. They say religion. They created a kind of ritual. They gather around maybe a big stone like as an idol, and then sang the same song and repeat it, and maybe follow some step of dance and movement. And so such practices, rituals, would develop a great sense of cohesion among themselves and provided a kind of survival advantage over other groups or tribes. So Brian McLaren, a leading voice in the contemporary emerging Christian movement, said that we should ask, is this really what religion is for? To distinguish our tribe from others, for the tribal marking. Is that religion for? But unfortunately, it often seems that way. Well, not just only 20,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago, even in our world, in today's world, our religions sometimes work as a tribal marking. And he raises a question. There should be a better way to be a Christian. Is there? That is a question that we're going to talk about today. So we all have noticed that there has been violences and hatred and wars among religious groups. But the struggles have not been just between different religious groups. Even among Christianity, we all know that there have been endless strifes and divisions and violence over who is right, who should be in, who should be out, who is orthodox, who is legit. Interestingly, it seems that Jesus faced the same struggle, the same question, same issues. One of his disciples raised a question, as you heard from the Mark's Gospel. He said, "Teacher, we saw someone throwing demons out in your name, and we tried to stop him because he wasn't following us." It means he's not in our club, in our circle. At that point, let's imagine what Jesus was like. Oh my goodness. How long should I teach you? Maybe he had a deep sigh and maybe rolled his eyes and then said, "Don't stop him. He's doing a good thing in God's power. Look, how many more times I need to tell you about God's kingdom? You still don't get it, huh? And we are not here to look for enemies to compete, but we are looking for allies, those workers to work with us, to bring more people, to help them reconcile to God and one another. That's our job, to heal the division, heal the whole nation. We are not looking for a way to cut off or reject people. So he said, whoever isn't against us is for us. And so Brian McLaren preached that what Jesus tried to teach us is that it is time for us and disciples to learn to work together, to get along with others, and expand our boundaries and learn to collaborate, to live together, to get along. Because we are building a change, reform, movement to make this world be reconciled to God and to one another. We are not building a club or tribe of our own. So to rethink what Jesus tried to tell us, think again, rethink the categories of us and them. This is deeply related to the issue that we often experience in our own life, isn't it? I'm not just talking about polarization in our world, in the political views, in everywhere. So Jesus' teaching is so insightful even today, more so than any other time. So he said, don't criticize if someone is trying to do good. Someone is trying to make things right. Don't dare to trip them. Don't make things harder for them. Don't get in their way. They are not your enemies. They are your allies, the same human being. Then he said, this is very challenging for us because it doesn't sound like Jesus' words, the gentle Jesus. So it sounds so harsh. He says, if your hand causes you to fall into sin, chop it off. If your foot causes you to fall into sin, chop it off. And if your eyes causes you to fall into sin, tear it out. I'm sure Jesus sounds like very frustrated. But as harsh as it sounds, perhaps this is very important for us to pay attention to. Of course, Jesus didn't mean to self-mutilation, right? But I was really inspired by McLaren preached about this part of Jesus' teaching. He said that Jesus tried to tell us that religiously righteous people, often so obsessed with that guy over there, that bad guy, the other team, the other parts of the wings of their party, or the others, not themselves. So think about it. Who is the problem here? And Jesus said that the enemy is not out there. Perhaps your enemy is inside of you, a part of you. So he said, your eyes, your foot, your hand. Think about that. What do they do? What would that invoke when you consider the work of your hand, the work of your foot, the work of your eye, which means what do you do with your hand? What do you do, the power in your hand? What influence you do with your power, or maybe your work? Or how about food? What helps you get moving? What motivates you to work? Or what directs you? Think about what you do with your movement. And then eye. What do you see? Or what you not see? And your worldviews, your perspective, or your outlook, what do they do to you and to others? When you think about it this way, Jesus was really started to make sense to us. Your great enemy is part of you. In so many of his teachings and parables, and certainly his own life, it's clear that Jesus doesn't want us judging others or differentiate who is my group, who is not my group. and trying to sift between wheat and chaff and ignoring the big log in your own eye. And he kept challenging us to repent and follow him. He said his yoke is easier than you think. And he asked us to learn from him, his humbleness, humility, and his meekness. And he asked us to enjoy the bird in the air. And he clarifies that the person in the kingdom of God, the citizen in the kingdom, must indeed want to learn a new way of living, new way of seeing, new way of living to get in. So he teaches his disciples to look at themselves, their own behavior, their way of thinking, their way of saying, their way of doing, because that everything, what they do, affect other people, influence others. So consider the influence this individual decisions and behavior have on others in our community, even in our families. So today, Jesus' words in his insight are pretty important as we live together with differences in our world. We are still, someone said, forming lots of our own tribes. I don't know what the social media, lots of people talk about the impact of social media and blame them. But really, what about us? What do we do? We're still using religion to justify our side of the story, our bias, our perspective, our even hatred. But Jesus warns us to watch our own selves, our own views, and our own behaviors. So McLaren says that we have a new problem. 10,000 years ago, or even 5,000 years ago, when human beings had conflict, division, then they got split and spread out and moved far, far, far apart. But now, we don't have that choice anymore. We don't have any land to banish people away. We have no more places to go. So we have to learn to get along and how to live together. So brief stories. My sons that live in Seattle, and they have lots of rain, right? Like today. Whole week they will have rain. So my oldest son, Alex, had a housemate. His name is Ali. He came from Los Angeles to study environment and ecology at Washington University. And he said that he and his friends drove from California and drove through Oregon and reached to Seattle. And then he said, people are so kind, so friendly in that northern part of the country. And they wonder. And then they said, because of the weather, because they have much rain, they had to stay inside a lot, and they need to learn how to get along well. So, how to get along with others. That's an invitation for you, how to get along with others in this world. And we need to get involved, so influence others with best self, with our words and thinking and behaviors, and help to create a better future for our own religious group, our own faith, and for our world. So McLaren asked us how to be a better way to be a Christian in today's world. Perhaps that is what Jesus invites us in today's gospel. Amen. So even though in this rainy day, wet day, we are here together, because together we can have a better discernment and decision, how to think, what to think, how to make a decision. So because of your community and our giving is a kind of act of our worship. So we ask you to be generous to share your gifts through your church community so that we can break this tribalism among us and then expand our boundaries and territories and then invite others, and we can be invited by others too. And today, especially during our from November, our new district, Prairie Central is our district's name, about 70 churches we have in our district. We started to pray for one another. So we call 7 weeks for 70 churches prayer. So here's a demo that Elaine Meldrum made for us, what we're up to.
Morning, my name is Elaine Meldrum, and I'm going to tell you about the Prairie Central District initiative of 7 weeks praying for 70 churches. No, we are not going to be praying for all 70 churches. What the district has done is have divided the district into 10 sections, and each section will pray for 7 churches, and that'll be over the next 7 weeks. We will start this November 7th, and our first church is the Hope Church in Joliet. Each week we will have a slide, and it will present the minister, the church, and tell about the 3 requests. Then for that 1 week, you would just be praying for that particular church. Then the next week, we would show you another church, and we would show their 3 requests for that week, and so forth until we end on December 19th, and we will be praying for our own church and for the 3 requests they have. Now, many people are trying to create things of how can we pray for this. Some people will cut up the paper that we will be distributing on November 7th into sections. They'll take each section and they may put it up on the bulletin board to show which church they're praying for and the 3 requests. Or some people have taken the sections and maybe they have put them in something like a flower pot and pulled out what they are praying for each week. I am sure that you can be very creative in how can we remember each district and how can we remember their 3 requests. So starting next week, we will be praying for 7 weeks, for 7 churches, and I am sure that your family can come up with some creative ways to remember how to pray for each church each week.
So we'll start from November 7th. So more information will come next week.
At this time, I'll invite you all to stand for our closing song.
It is the cry of my heart to follow you. It is the cry of my heart to be close to you. It is the cry of my heart to follow all of the days of my life.
I think you know this one.
Teach me your holy ways, O Lord, so I can walk in your truth. Teach me your holy ways, O Lord, and make me wholly devoted to you. Oh, it is the cry of my heart to follow you. It is the cry of my heart to be close to you. It is the cry of my heart to follow all of the days of my life. Open my eyes so I can see the wonderful things that you do. Teach me you hearts of more and more, and make me wholly devoted to you. Oh, it is the cry of my heart to follow you. It is the cry of my heart to be close to you. It is the cry of my heart to follow all of the days of my life.
day is a day that we can practice what we believe through our words and our action. So remember, God invites us to be a better way to be a Christian. And then by being together, we can be a better way to figure it out. So we're saying then, please join me a blessing with responses. And remember, right after this, you may stay on Facebook to join us our conversation with our community leaders. John Garner and Natalie Mentley and Tom Broxton will be with us right here. So this is the day that God has made. We will not offer to God. Go in peace to love and serve. May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the communion of the Holy Spirit with you now and always. Amen.
Oh, it's my sister. Yeah. A lot of planning on their part.
Yeah. And it's out of state, so there's a lot of moving parts, and they magically came together. It's a fabulous day. Yeah. Children dancing. It's really great. My favorite part. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Of course, yeah.
That's cool. That's a cool instrument too. That would have gone good on the if we had a marimba for the drive.
good. Thank you, Tom. That's a great idea. Yeah. Love it. Make him come closer.
It's nice to be able to start just a couple minutes early. Good morning. I'm Michelle Braxton. I've been a member of Friendship Church since 1983, and I coordinated today's program with the United Methodist Women for today. Friendship has always been very strong in recognizing the needs of others and working to help them. Our UMW and outreach help people in so many areas, and our new JEDI team works to understand and implement justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion for all. Senator Connor and Representative Manley have been here at Friendship before for small group discussions, and a lot of our members have asked me if we could please have them come back, so we're very glad to have them here today. Trustee Braxton has longtime ties with Friendship Church. For those who have not met our panel, I'm going to introduce them to you. After the introductions, then each of them will speak about some relevant things in their particular area, and then we will take questions. We'll take questions a couple different ways. I have a wireless microphone that I can walk around, if you raise your hand and want to ask a question in person. I took a couple of questions in writing when I was in the hallway this morning, so I have a couple of those. And then for people who are watching on Facebook, you can type in your question. We have someone in the office who will then bring the question in to us, or you can call the church office, 630-972-1011, and that person in the office will take your question and bring it in here. Our guests today, State Senator John Connor has a history of his work within the state of Illinois. He was a prosecutor in the Will County State's Attorney's Office, and his specialty area was computer forensics evidence. He served in the Illinois House of Representatives from 2017 to 2020, and he began his Illinois Senate work in January of 2021. Interesting, too, is a long history of family public service that I thought would be cool, if that sounds good, would be cool to share. His dad was a judge and Joliet mayor, and his great-great-grandfather was a state senator in 1885. State Representative Natalie Manley has been our state representative since 2013, and she is currently the Assistant Majority Leader in the House. She's an accountant. She's also a radio show host on WJOL in Joliet, and she wanted me very specifically to say that she is also a grandmother. Applause for that, yeah. And Tom Braxton was elected DuPage Township trustee in April. He has worked politically behind the scenes since 8th grade, when he started attending town council meetings in Hammond, Indiana. He has reorganized and was chair of the DuPage Township Democratic Organization and currently is the secretary there. He's lived in Bolingbrook and DuPage Township for 42 years. He coincidentally joined Friendship Church in 1983 also. He started the Concerns Beyond the Parish Outreach Committee, which is now Church and Society. He taught Sunday school, he was a lay leader, and he started the TV ministry here. When Crossroads of Faith United Methodist Church was started, he moved over there to help them start. It was a church plant from Friendship. He helped start that, and he still is their TV ministry coordinator over there. So I would like to go ahead now with the presentations. Starting Senator Connor, please, and then we'll do Representative Manley and then Trustee Braxton, and then we can take questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. is it, oh, there we go, okay. Okay, pull it up. Oh, there we go, sorry. Got it. Okay, I'm going to take my mask off because my voice gets severely muffled, as loud as it is. So, thank you all for having us here today. Again, as Michelle said, my name is John Connor. I'm the state senator for the 43rd Senate District here in the area, and that starts south as far as Elwood and proceeds up through parts of Shanahan, Joliet, includes a good portion of Joliet, and then parts of Crest Hill, Romeoville, Bolingbrook, and Woodridge. So it goes quite a bit, as far as north-south goes, it covers quite a bit of distance. So it has a wide range of issues as a result because of all the communities that it serves. So one of the things that I was discussing with Michelle in preparing for today was kind of what is the theme, you know, what are kind of the themes that you want us to discuss? And so we talked about equity and diversity and these types of issues of social justice. And it's interesting because prior to going into the legislature, you know, I had one view of those issues as fitting into kind of a narrow container. Now I see it from a very different perspective, and you can see how these issues impact across a very wide range of issues and things that affect a lot of people during their daily lives. So, and I'll start out with an example, a big example. So right now in the district, one of the things that we celebrated just recently with the governor and the lieutenant governor coming down was the 6-year project to basically replace a 16-mile stretch of Interstate 80. And you might think, well, that's roads and bridges. What does that have to do with equity or diversity? Well, who works on that project and who, you know, which contractors are utilized and who makes money and those types of issues have a whole lot to do with equity and diversity. And there was a specific effort made to ensure that for those contracts that they were going to be looking in communities of color and other disadvantaged communities in order to hire people to work on these projects. So that's an example of where something that's infrastructure that has to do with the safety of the roads and the bridges that we travel on also has a huge equity and diversity component, and it has a big impact when you lay out the criteria for the contractors that get to work on such an enormous project. That has a big impact on communities as to whether or not contractors from their community are hired to work on that project or not. So that's just one example. Now that is at least a $1.2 billion project, so this is not a small dollar amount, and it's going to have a big economic impact on the area as well. A lot of people, if you look at that stretch of I-80 now, they don't always necessarily want to go into downtown Joliet because that stretch of I-80 is a dangerous stretch. And that's going to get fixed. It's going to take some time, but that's going to get fixed. And the better Joliet's economy does, the better the people living in Joliet do. And that affects all communities. So we want to work on those types of issues. One of the pieces of legislation that I passed this session had to do with voting access. We made some significant changes to, again, make it easier and easier for people to vote. I think everyone definitely on this panel wants to make voting this fundamental right that is at the core of our democracy as easy as possible for everyone who wants to participate. So that is a huge issue of equity and inclusion and diversity, because there are things that you can do to make voting very, very difficult, in particular for particular groups, and we want to make sure in Illinois that that never happens. So again, that's another example of how we moved an issue forward, that being voting rights, and it's going to have a significant impact on equality, equity, diversity, those types of issues. One of the issues that I was working on most recently, in fact over this last weekend, was incentives for electric vehicle companies to come into Illinois. And this is a statewide issue. Illinois is
poised right now to possibly become the Detroit of the electric vehicle industry. And this has to do with the economy. And again, you might ask the question, well, what do electric vehicles have to do with equity, diversity, equality, these types of themes? But the way that these incentives are structured can have a big impact on issues of equity and diversity and equal access to the economy, to other things. One of the things that we're working on is that there are additional incentives for electric vehicle manufacturers, electric vehicle component part manufacturers, and other manufacturers who are associated with the electric vehicle industry to say that if you go into an economically disadvantaged area, and there are definitely parts of Joliet that would qualify for that, they get additional incentives in order to go into an area like that and build a company, build a manufacturing spot. So yet again, it sounds like it's just related to business and economy, but it's not. It has an equity and diversity component that could really affect the future of everyone here in Illinois. If we successfully create supply chain clusters for electric vehicles here in Illinois, again, we will be at the forefront of electric vehicle manufacturing. We already have Rivian in Bloomington, we have Stellantis in Rockford, and we have Lion Electric right here in Joliet, in addition to Hyzon, which manufactures hydrogen fuel cells in Bolingbrook. So we already have significant things going on here in the district when it comes to electric vehicles, but that is an industry that is going to continue to increase in economic activity, and we want to have that going on here in Illinois, and I want to have it going on here in the 43rd District. So again, and then my final issue that I'm going to talk about is the Joliet Regional Water System that we're going to be working on. We are running out of water. Joliet's not going to have enough water, and the surrounding area is going to have drawn too much water from the deep water aquifer, and it's going to run out, quite simply. And so we have to take steps to get Lake Michigan water down here to the area. That's going to be approximately a $1.7 billion project that Joliet is going to have to spearhead in order to make sure that we get water down to this area from Lake Michigan, because that deep water aquifer is going dry. That as well is going to have an equity component to it. But we need to make sure that the contractors working on that, that a significant component of them are minority or women-owned businesses, those types of things. So the point that I'm trying to make is that things that we don't normally associate necessarily in our heads with equity and diversity and inclusion, we need to think about our projects and our goals with those components built in. And that is one of the things that we've been doing, definitely myself and Leader Manley, as we move legislation forward relating to those issues here in the district. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Leader Manley, who's going to be far more amusing than I am. So.
Hello. Good afternoon, almost afternoon, good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here. I want to first apologize for my attire. I have to leave here and go to a road dedication for a young man that was killed in the line of duty. Killed in the line of service. He was, I think he was in the Army, private first class, Andrew Mary. We're finally getting this done. This has been something we've been working on a long time. You'd think it would be a slam dunk, easy thing, but legislation grinds slowly. Anyway, I got to go stand in the rain, so I changed my clothes, and I apologize for my casualness. I just want to stay warm. My name's Natalie Manley. I am in my 5th term, aging rapidly. In the Illinois House, I am in leadership. I'm an assistant House Majority Leader, which comes with a whole plethora of interesting things. And as Michelle told you, I've been here before because I have good friends that go to this church, and I appreciate you being here with us. And I am a grandma to Leonardo, who is the love of my life. Don't tell my husband. Honestly, it's the love of his life, too. So, My experience has been to kind of just tell you why I'm here, why I was asked to be here, and some of the things we are doing legislatively to address some of the things you might be interested in, concerned with, hoping we get done. Sometimes we get things done, and because they might not affect us directly, you don't even know it's happened. So I'm going to go through a list of things we've done, but I want to talk about a couple things. So COVID's been really, really tough on people, really tough. I know that in my own world, in my own life, I'm a people person. Isolation's been hard for me. We were away from my grandson for almost 60 days. That was, really awful. But tracking alongside this pandemic and the health epidemic is also a mental health epidemic. And so be good to yourselves. I tell everyone that it's really important that we assume that everybody's doing the best they can and then cut them some slack anyways. So I recognize it in myself, in people around me, and I'm sure you know within yourselves and people around you that we just have to be good to each other. As long as this thing lasts, I'm hoping we're toward the end of it. We're going to go through the holidays, we'll see. But COVID has also given us an opportunity to reinvent how we meet. So we might have to sit far away from each other, or we're now using Facebook and technology for Zoom and live feeds, so we can communicate with one another. So it shows that we're resilient and we're going to figure it out. No matter what we go through as human beings, we're going to try to figure it out and go forward and do better. So this was a great idea. This is the first time I've been involved at a meeting where we're Facebook living. I'm really bad at Facebook, so if you send me a message in Messenger, chances are I won't get it right away because I am not accustomed and I'm not as skilled as other people, but this is a really great idea. I am here to talk about equity and fairness. What is that? Equity and fairness. Everybody sees that in a little different way. And in a chamber of 118 individuals from all parts of the state and all walks of life, you tend to get a different version of what people think are, what is equity, what is fairness. I have my own ideas. The thing that I've found most helpful to me is we all have different experiences. To remember that. We all have different experiences. We don't all have the same point of reference. And the one thing I learned about empathy, which is different than sympathy, as we all know, if you are really and truly going to empathize with someone, you've got to believe what they're telling you. If you're going to believe what they're telling you, you can empathize. There's no judgment in what people are telling you. So in order to, to evoke that feeling of empathy, you got to go with what they're telling you because you don't know personally, right? So a lot of these bills come from all over the state, come from Democrats mainly. Not all of them. Not all of them only had Democrat support. Sometimes, and many times, the Republicans supported some of these measures. Sometimes they're partisan. I didn't bring that information because I don't think that's the issue. I think just moving forward together is the real goal. Making life better for marginalized communities, making life better for everyone. Being allies to those that we're empathizing with is better. That's just my 2 cents. So all the bills that I'm about to talk about have been passed in our law. These are this last session, so in 2021. These are just a brief description of what the bill was about. There's more meat to it, and it's easily found on the ilga.gov website. But if you're like me, I'm a CPA by training. Numbers are my jam. there's a lot of legal language, but I can certainly help you decipher that as I try to figure it out too. But so I have good staff that helps me understand the things that lawyers understand. So number one, insured same-sex couples are treated equally by our healthcare system and are not financially penalized for their sexual orientation. That was House Bill 3709. I co-sponsored that. We decriminalize HIV-positive individuals engaging in consensual sexual activities. That was HB 1063. Restored state veterans' benefits to individuals who received other than honorable or general discharges because of their LGBTQIA plus status. I'm not sure what the politically correct way to say that is. I'm going to say LGBTQ, and then always think I mean IA plus, okay? Or else I'm going to say a lot of words. But no disrespect to anybody who falls in IA plus. Expand access to menstrual hygiene products in schools, requiring that they are available in each bathroom of every school building, HB 156. Cut red tape from, I got one yay from the crowd, thank you. Cut red tape, I got a lot of boos on that, just so you know, a lot of boos. Thank you, appreciate that. Cut red tape for minority and women-owned businesses and improve their access to state contracts, House Bill 132. Directed the Department of Human Services to disseminate information, educating immigrants and non-citizens residing in Illinois of their rights. That's a big one, HB 709. Ensured the historical contributions of Asian Americans are taught in Illinois schools, HB 376. Made committing specific crimes against someone due to their citizenship or immigration status a hate crime, Senate Bill 1596. Improved health care outcomes in communities of color by combating implicit bias in care, addressing disparities in maternal and infant mortality, and expanded access to quality physical and mental health care, House Bill 158. So that was this past session. In previous sessions, we ensured the inclusion of significant historical events and contributions by the LGBTQ people in U.S. history curriculum taught in Illinois public schools. We included LGBTQ people in the state's jury service non-discrimination protections. There's a lot of laws that were on the books that didn't include the LGBTQ community. Ensured all workers are protected against discrimination on basis of race, gender, or religion, or sexual orientation. All workers. Work toward equal pay for women by cracking down on companies that lock women into a lifetime of lower pay. That was especially a fun one for me. I liked that one. I co-sponsored that. United medical experts and policymakers to create a comprehensive plan to address the needs of African American mothers due to higher rates of pregnancy complications in the African American community. Addressed inequities and increased educational opportunities for students of color by increasing investment in our schools, expanding pathways to higher education, and addressing long-standing racial disparities in education. So, Illinois is a great state. You live in a great state, you pay taxes in a great state, and we'll continue to try to keep that ball rolling. I thank you and look forward to your questions. Thank you. It is my great pleasure this guy helped me way in the beginning when I was first running for office. He believed in me when I didn't even believe in me. DuPage Township trustee, the esteemed and beloved Tom Braxton.
Well, thank you. And here we're on. Yeah. Thank you, Representative Manley. And yeah, I've known Representative Manley and Senator Connor for a long time. And yeah, Natalie and I, in the beginning, she and I went door to door collecting signatures so she can get on the ballot. And there's stories to tell about that, which if in private I can tell you about. Stuff has happened, and yeah, and we almost had to raise bail money for us, but that's another story. But it's yeah, pleasure to be here. Thank you. And it's obviously many of you know who I am. As you know me as Mr. Michelle, but I've been as she said, we've been members here. We joined the church in 1983, and we've lived in Bolingbrook since '79, so that's 42 years. And it's, and yeah, and I must confess, she was right. Since I was in the 8th grade, technically, I've been active politically. And I suppose before that even, when I was, the years before that, when I was in Cub Scouts, the father of one of the other guys in my Cub Scout den was a local precinct committeeman, and I was helping him pass out palm cards then. So it was, I suppose at age 9, I was involved in politics too. But it's, yeah, I was always drawn to that. But it's not just because not the sport of politics. Well, that's fun. It is, and it's interesting. But I really believe, and it's corny, but I think it's true, and it sounds corny. But politics are the way we as a people in general, as I said, the first 3 words of the Constitution, we the people, that's how we get things done. And we have a self-government. One of my favorite stories or anecdotes that I fall back on when I talk to people about, when they ask these questions, I mention that I've been doing this for a long time, and they say, well, that doesn't make a difference, they're all crooks, the usual cliches. And I said, well, look, the story is, and it's maybe apocryphal, but it's survived for more than 200 years, so it holds up. But when the Constitutional Convention was completed in 1787, so not quite 200 years, but when it was over with, somebody approached Ben Franklin, who was in there, and he was an old man at that time, famous guy. And said, Dr. Franklin, what kind of government did you come up with? Because at the time, they were coming off of a monarchy from Great Britain, and anything else was just unheard of or never been done. And he said, well, it's a republic if you can keep it. And that's the rub, if you can keep it. And you have to do things, you have to be involved in things like this, and then thank you all for attending this program, because you're helping keep the republic, even in the lowest scale as I'm involved with. Just being the lowest scale, I don't have really life-touching stories of legislation like Representative Manley or Senator Connor has, because the township is the most local form of government. DuPage Township is 36 square miles. So north to 87th Street, south to 135th Street, east to, I don't know, it's roughly where 355 cuts through there, and west to Book Road. And that's it. In Will County, all the townships, or I'm sorry, all the counties are divided into townships. And that dates back to literally 170 years ago, when the state was incorporated in 1818, I believe it was. And obviously it was mostly wilderness then. Abe Lincoln wasn't even here yet, but it was divided into counties. There's 102 counties. But again, the only practical way to administer any local government, and not just for enforcement, but for public service, was divided into townships. Everybody was on a horse or on foot, and so the 6 square mile areas made sense. And so DuPage Township, where we live, this little township here, we're one of 24 townships in Will County. If you look at a map of Will County, it looks like a checkerboard. It's sliced like a square sliced pizza, and it's in 36 square mile blocks. And DuPage Township is where we are. And it's frequently confused. I've learned this over the years. We are in DuPage Township, and it's not DuPage County. And just the county was named, 140 years ago after the river, which was named for an early explorer. And when this township was formed in 1850, it was named for the river also. So it turned out they both share the same name, but this is DuPage Township in Will County. So what does the township do? And that's actually in the course of going door to door during many election cycles as a volunteer and precinct committee person, and talking to potential voters. And I say I'm from DuPage Township, and what is that? Nobody knows what it is. Because DuPage Township, and all the townships for that matter, have existed for many years as 36 square mile segments in Will County. But they're overlaid with the villages and towns and municipalities and school districts and library boards and park districts and whatever else. Elsewhere around the state, there's mosquito abatement districts, there's water reclamation districts. These are all elected bodies, but they overlay the townships. And arguably, in many cases, Evanston Township did this. the township serves no purpose anymore because the municipalities cover all the services that the township used to cover. Now, by state statute, there are 3 official duties of a township. The first is provide general assistance. So the distribution of general assistance funds, people who need help, either for emergency purposes or general help, is administered through the township. The second is property assessment. So when you get your property assessment to pay your property tax, that comes through the township. The assessor's office is in the township. And actually that operates independently. While it's under the township umbrella, the township board has nothing to do with that except to approve their budget. And then the third function is roads and bridges within the township. Now, there's a caveat in that for DuPage Township because by state statute again, there's a threshold. If there's fewer than 5 miles, I believe it is, of roads in a township, then they don't have to the township does not need to maintain a highway commissioner's office anymore. So currently, DuPage Township is only responsible for 2.8 miles of Bluff Road, which is over by 355, and it's in pretty bad shape. It turned out we inherited a road that needs a lot of work. And just the most recent board meeting, we approved a bid to take out bids on getting that road repaired. It's been neglected for many years, and it's too bad. And it's not used much, but when it is used, it should be safe. And so we're responsible to maintain that. That's it. But there used to be a highway commissioner in the township, but there is no longer because there was no need for it. It could not justify the expense of maintaining a highway department when there was only 2.8 miles of road. All the other roads and bridges and that type of infrastructure is maintained by the villages and municipalities who are overlaid on top of the township. Now, other townships that are more rural, in the southern part of Will County and elsewhere in the state, it makes sense to have a highway commissioner because there are not incorporated municipalities there that have a road department to maintain the roads, to plow the snow in the wintertime, to fix the potholes, maintain the shoulders, paint the stripes, whatever. And so they have, the townships do maintain that. So those are the 3 functions. So it's general assistance, property assessment, and road maintenance. And actually there is a law also that says, for townships specifically, that says the townships cannot do anything that they are not legally authorized to do. So we cannot choose to do something else. We can't choose, as much as we'd like to, we cannot legislate inclusion and equity statutes because the law does not permit the townships to do that because it's not defined in the statute. But what the township can do is provide general assistance. Now, at least in DuPage Township, what that's worked out to be over the years, that's grown to include senior citizen services, as many of you are probably aware. The Levy Senior Center in DuPage Township, that's a good story there too, because this is 40 years ago. Joseph and Sarah Levy Foundation, this couple, they're originally from Evanston, I believe. They, as almost on a smaller scale like Andrew Carnegie did with his libraries, they donated a lot of money to municipalities and local areas to develop senior citizen centers. And they donated, I think it was $300,000 in 1981 to build the Levy Senior Center in Bolingbrook, or in DuPage Township. Well, they said you can build it, but somebody has to maintain it. So it fell to DuPage Township to maintain that, and to this day that's there now, and it's a nice facility. Banquets are held there, and there's a huge senior program. Some of you may be involved in that or take advantage of those programs, but there's an extensive senior program, mostly leisure type activities. Literally every day there's something going on. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out. And that's to get that word out, we started a quarterly newsletter. Most of you should have gotten this. And this is the second issue that's come out. There had been an occasional little paper newsletter that came out identifying the schedule for the senior activities called Oldies But Goodies, but that had a limited mailing list, and it just was not maintained well. So we made a decision upon taking office that we needed to inform everybody in the township. You're all paying taxes for this, and so you should all know what's going on. So this newsletter comes out 4 times a year, and it lists all the activities, all the programs, whatever's new in the township, which includes a food pantry, which has been available for many years, And the current food pantry location is in Romeoville, and Rockwell Road, or I'm sorry, not Rockwell, but I should look it up here. Well, the actual address is just off Normantown and Route 53 in that little industrial area back there in Romeoville. And it has hours Tuesday and Thursday from 11 to 2, excuse me, and then Saturdays, which we started this year. Those had been only 2 days it was open, which was too bad because many people who need that service couldn't get there during the week. And so we established Saturday hours on there starting just a couple of months ago. And so it's open now from 11 to 1 or 2, so I can't remember the exact hours, but it's open on Saturdays also. So that's an important part of our understanding of substance. Yeah.
I was just going to tell everybody, the best thing about this group of people in charge of the township is, you know how everybody falls on hard times? We've all had those moments. We know people have had those moments. The best thing about the food pantry is they provide an environment where it saves everybody their dignity. It's like a little store. You get to, remember years ago you'd see they'd give you whatever they got and, and away you'd go? Mm-hmm. It's like a shopping environment. And every person that uses it gets to leave with their dignity, which I think is the best part. I just wanted to tell you that.
But
I get really emotional about that because it's a thing we forget about people that have fallen on hard times. Yeah. It's always the thing we want to make them feel like, I don't know what it is about people, but being able to let them come in and leave with their dignity intact is important to me. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And as long as we're interrupting, just kidding. No, I wanted to comment on something, or to kind of follow up with what Leader Manley said and comment on something that Tom said. So he mentioned that they are now open on Saturdays. And that sounds like just that he just kind of mentioned that and rolled on through, but that's something that I want to comment on because it wasn't done before. I'm a big fan of Rear Admiral Grace Hopper, who had a number of different sayings. Probably the most famous is, a ship in port is safe, but that's not what ships are built for. But her other saying was that the most dangerous phrase in the English language is, because that's the way we've always done it. And obviously, when Tom and the rest of the members of the DuPage Township board got there, they did not have Saturday hours because that's the way they had always done it. And so what I really like about their approach is that the fact that there was a way of doing it before doesn't stop them from innovating and from providing those services in a way that's much more attuned to the needs of the people who, that are receiving it. And that's something to keep in mind. You really need people to be in positions of power who ask that question. Why don't we? Why aren't we open on Saturday? And if the only reason is because that's the way we've always done it, you need people who are willing to make that change. And so kudos to the board on that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you both. Actually, and as John said, it was true. When we assumed office earlier this year, there were things like that. The food pantry, why isn't it open on Saturdays? That's when people can get there. Well, of course it should be open on Saturday. So now it's limited hours, of course. But again, we're going through a limited budget and limited number of volunteers who can help. But as Natalie described it, it is like people go shopping there. It's not, you're not handed a basket full of stuff. It's there's a wide enough selection and deep enough inventory of provisions there. They literally have shopping carts. They can go through this little cycle and then pick what they need. And it's controlled. I mean, people don't empty the shelves and fill their carts, but they can get what they need. That's the point. And that's as it should be. And they can do it with dignity, as John said. It's a case where people should not feel like they have to apologize for asking for help. And we all, at one time or another, we will all have needed or will need that kind of support. And so that's what that's about. I mean, to that end, when we got there too, we learned that the people who worked for the township were only getting paid $11 an hour, and that's absurd. I mean, they can make more money going to McDonald's, and they're doing more valuable work at the township. So literally our first act, one thing we voted on was to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. at the township. So if the people that work, many of those are part-time, but they're valuable folks. If we don't have those people there, we can't provide these services like the food pantry and the rest. So anyway, the bottom line is the township is the most local form of government. Yeah, and it often gets confused with the village. And the village obviously has a higher profile because they do everything in the village. They maintain the roads and the stoplights and the police and the fire and all that. And the township flies under the radar because when you look at your property tax bill, it's less than 1%. So it's not a tax sink. You know, the budget is pretty low, and but the services provided are real. And whether it's a youth program, also I mentioned the senior program as a youth program, but these are all available to you. And if you live in DuPage Township, it's available. So in fact, that's the main reason we started this newsletter, because many people just simply did not know it was there or what was available to them. So please take advantage. You're paying for it. Take advantage of it. And if you believe there's something that should be added or changed or whatever, please let us know. You all know we, and I have copies of my cards here too, so we can connect later. So, Madam Moderator.
Green light is on. There we go. We have questions from some of our viewers, and I thought maybe we'd alternate that with questions from the audience also. So I'll start with the one that has come in through our Facebook. To ensure our children's safety at schools from shootings, metal detectors, etc.
I'm going to let you go, John.
So this is a difficult question because there are so many reasons, why we've had this, especially this recent uptick in violence. Unfortunately, this is all across the country. This is not unique to Illinois. And I've heard some discussions on it, and the reasons that I find the most compelling are that many of the kids have been in remote learning. They have not been in social situations for a long time. They've been interacting only through computers or the internet, et cetera. And now everyone's together again. And not everybody's made the adjustment back to, in-person interaction quite as well. I also personally believe that social media has not helped our children in terms of their ability to interact with each other in a healthy manner. And the recent revelations about Facebook and the studies, et cetera, kind of supports that. But as far as firearms go, the essential problem is that, if a child gets access to a firearm, they don't have, a fully formed, their judgment has not usually been fully formed according to the studies of the prefrontal cortex and behavioral analysis. And so a firearm in the hands of a child is obviously a very dangerous situation. So there are obviously metal detectors are our first line of defense in the schools. Now, since some of the really high-profile tragedies, there are safety mechanisms that are in place in the schools against an active shooter. Almost every school that I am aware of has instituted policies and protocols because they've had to of how do we deal with an active shooter, whether that's a child or an adult, which is kind of a nightmarish reality. I don't remember these conversations, when I was growing up, so it is sad that this is what our children have to live with. And so, like with anything else, we have to balance, safety with other issues. And for right now, I think that things are going to get better as we all come out of the pandemic, in terms of violence. But we really have to work on mental health and
That's
treatment.
what I was going to say.
Here in the U.S., I think we're behind on that, and that is going to
Education,
help.
mental health. Education, mental health. Education, mental health. Supporting those avenues. I mean, that's where, the guns aside, I vote for reforms, this is a hard one because there's nobody that takes up a firearm and shoots other people isn't having some sort of a mental health issue. It just doesn't make, you can't explain it to me any other way. And if there isn't a gun and it's just, you know, you've seen recently in the news the violence erupting in schools, hand-to-hand fighting. I'd like someone to convince me it's anything other than the fact that we've had these enormous stresses on our lives. Nobody could predict COVID. In a perfect world, I was just saying this the other night with some friends, I wish that every student in every school had an opportunity once a week to have, even if it's at telehealth's beautiful, especially for those that have some mental health issues and need someone to talk to. Wouldn't it be great if every student in school had that opportunity to sit with someone, with a professional psychologist and be able to talk through some things that they wouldn't have to act out? It's just, it's really hard, number one, to find mental health professionals, and number two, to be able to support the service. But we need it. God knows we need it.
The audience? I'm coming over. We have to have the microphone.
I think I need a mic.
Yes, we do for the people who are watching.
Oh, okay. I think that there is a, there it goes. There is a new training program that was funded to train people to work at Rivian, basically. It was in that whatever the community college is. And it would seem to me that investing much more money in job training would be something that we should really focus on. One, to transition people who are in very low income jobs. Not everybody should go to college. But if we could perhaps have more emphasis on job training through the junior college system, and I don't know whether we have plans to do that, but I'd like to know that. The second question, very different, is what can we do about the horrible financial situation that we find ourselves in and the debt situation that we have in Illinois?
I was going to deal with the first question, but
I think that's a good plan, but I think we could both probably address the second one even, right?
Yeah,
Go ahead, John.
That's fine. So the first question, and I mentioned a little bit about this when I started my intro, and things worked out well because I talked about what we're going to do. Leader Manley talked about what we have done, and then Tom talked about what's been done at the township level. So to follow up on that, you're absolutely right. Rivian partnered with Heartland Community College, and they are training people to work at their plant down in Bloomington. We have a brand new plant in Joliet, thanks to the Will County Center for Economic Development and a lot of hardworking people at the city. And Joliet Junior College and others are going to be working on training programs for that particular facility. And we're trying to encourage those partnerships between local, educational facilities and then these companies that are coming in. And you're absolutely right. So we are actually, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that we vote on this incentive package for electric vehicle and manufacturers and component manufacturers coming up this week so that we can bring more of these companies in, make supply chain clusters, et cetera. But a big part of that incentive is that we are giving tax credits for them to train people. So in other words, they get a little bit of a break as long as the money is going to training people and getting certificates and that type of thing to work in that industry. So you're absolutely right. So it is contemplated. One, you have to get the companies to come in to your state, and then two, you have to give them an incentive to train people to continue that process, because at some point it becomes self-sustaining, but you have to reach that critical mass. Like I said, my dream is that Illinois becomes the new Detroit for the electric vehicle industry. So you're absolutely right. So there is going to be a lot of work. The answer to your question is there's a lot of work that's going to be done on getting that training done. But there is one more thing that you mentioned in your question that I wanted to address. And, you know, when I was out knocking on doors all the time, many parents were saying to me, you know, my son or my daughter, they're not cut out for college. We need, you know, we need more opportunities for them to receive, whether it's, you know, computer programming certification or technical training in specific areas. And so what you're bringing up is something that we have been working on at the legislature. And I remember talking to a CEO of a company, and he mentioned that he had been stationed in the Netherlands for a while, and that they had a system where the state gives stipends for people to go and intern at companies so that the company doesn't bear the whole cost of hiring or training someone, not knowing whether they're going to work at the company or not. But at the same time, the person gets training at a company, you know, practical training where they're actually on the job. And that way, if they decide this industry isn't for me, you know, there's been some basically risk sharing between the government and the company. And that seemed to work out very well. And we're heading in that direction, you know, here in the U.S. and definitely here in Illinois. Pre-apprenticeship programs are a huge push right now so that we can get, you know, more people into the trade unions and get people these jobs that are paying and they're future-proof. And that's, you know, the electric vehicles, that's a future-proof technology because we're definitely moving to electric vehicles. That's not you know, that's kind of a no-brainer. So I'm going to let Leader Manley start on the second answer, and then I'll chime in on the one about pensions and unfunded liabilities.
Yuck. Thanks for that awful question. So if anybody has a time machine, I'm going to jump in, go back and start exercising, and maybe not laying in the sun so much so I don't look this bad. Truth is, for decades, you know, we've come through times of great prosperity, but not recently. A lot of our issues, nothing ever just happens overnight, except for COVID, apparently. But most of our financial woes are because of the inattention to, so, can you guys hear me okay? I am a CPA. So you can imagine my deer in the headlights look when I got to Springfield and figured out how budgeting was done. You know, it's an appropriations process. It's interesting. It's governmental accounting. But I will tell you, it's an uncomfortable spot for somebody who knows what budgeting looks like and forecasting and timelines of events and cash flow and things like that. So if you take your eye off the ball because things are good, sometimes money gets directed to other places. The contingency plan was never in place for the economic downturn of 2009. We all remember that, right? Those of us who owned homes that once had a value. I mean, we saw so many horrible things. I was knocking on doors in 2012, and I had grown men answer their door, come outside with tears in their eyes, whisper to me, I'm about to lose my home. What am I going to do? This was a direct result of the economy taking a dive and us not being prepared. The property tax issue is all about, that is 60% of your property tax bill. The schools, right? 60%. We have underfunded schools for decades here in Illinois. So they've had to go to by levy to the actual homeowners to get more money. So we're trying to undo some of that. You've heard through the last several years that our bond rating was, you know, near junk. That has come back through the leadership of Governor Pritzker, whether you like him or not, I don't care. I like to tell the truth and facts. By the way, one of the things I learned in Springfield really early on is that people want the truth unless they don't like it. Unless they don't like it. But it's still the truth. So we're doing things to, our bond rating has risen. We had to make terrible cuts. If you remember back when Bruce Rauner was governor and we had a 700-plus day with no budget, we were on autopilot with everything as far as paying our agencies, but many, many people went without services. The reason government exists is to serve its people. That's why we pay taxes. So we're doing some things. It just takes a long time to dig out of the mistakes of the past. And so we're getting there little by little. I'm going to let John address the pension crisis because he said it. I didn't. So I'm going to tee him up for that. But know that things are, COVID was a total unforeseen crisis. We don't even know what's going to happen as a result of that yet financially here in the state of Illinois. There was no roadmap for this. None of us saw it coming. I'm sure you've heard that many times. We don't even know what it's going to be like in the next session with budgeting. But we're trying. The people down there, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, they understand the gravity of what we're doing. So we keep moving forward, little by little.
Yeah, that's correct. And this has been a thorny issue ever since I got in. But right when I got in, a couple weeks later, we voted for a budget for the first time in a long time. And I'd love to take credit for that. But I had been in about, I think I went 14 or 15 days at that point. But one of the best speeches that I ever heard on the House floor was for one of the Republicans who voted to override Rauner's veto. And I'll never forget it because of the imagery he used during his speech. And he talked about debt service payments. And he said, we've basically gone to where we're not paying our debts, and we're paying penalties because we're not paying our debts, and we're making interest payments. And he said, this year, because of the hole that we've dug ourselves in, it's going to be about $890 million in debt service payments. And he said, for all the good that that does any of the Illinois taxpayers, you might as well pile that money up and burn it, because it's not helping anyone, it's not building anything, it's not creating anything. All it's doing is paying off because because somebody was trying to create chaos and get some advantage out of chaos. Except that we are the ones who pay the price for the chaos, not necessarily, someone who is better off is probably going to be a little better protected against chaos. So I had an interesting interaction. I had a constituent who, and I don't remember if he sent an email or wrote in a letter, and it was a little bit testy, nothing that bad, but being Irish, kind of the worse, the more negative the letter that I get, the more I want to go and talk to that person at their house, just to, hear it firsthand. So anyway, long story short, I talked to this individual, and my question to him was, if you have to make up money that was not paid in the past, and we understand this, if for 30 years you skip payments to anyone, everybody in this room knows what happens, and you either declare bankruptcy, which we don't have that option as a state, by the way, so that's not an option for us, but you're going to end up paying it back. You're just going to pay back more because you didn't make the payments. And so as Leader Manley said, we inherited 25 to 30 years of pension holidays, pension sweeteners, things that were done that just racked up the debt because things were good right at that time, and no one wanted to raise taxes on anybody in order to prepare for an eventuality. So if you don't take care of tomorrow today, then you're not in a good position when tomorrow arrives. So the long story short, I asked this individual, I said, if you have to come up with the money, say you're me, and you have to make some choices, and those choices are a graduated or progressive income tax, an increase in the sales tax. That's regressive. It's going to hit poor people harder, just a general increase in the sales tax. Increasing the gas tax and the motor fuel tax. A tax on services, whether you get your hair cut, your lawn mowed, et cetera, or taxing retirement income, which no one is going to suggest. But I said, let's just lay out those options, and then you make a choice. make a choice. And he said, I'm not going to choose. And I said, well, that's a luxury that I don't have. At some point, as a legislator, I'm going to have to make a choice. And I want that choice to be as informed as possible by as many experts as possible. And so that's the reason why we've had many forums and discussions. There's a gentleman named Ralph Martiri, does an absolutely fantastic presentation about Illinois' finances and unfunded liabilities and how you have to take care of it. But there's one important thing to keep in mind. Gina Raimondo, when she was Rhode Island's governor, basically had a similar pension problem. In Illinois, we have a constitutional amendment that says that one of the things that you're not going to do is tamper with people's pension benefits. That's a promise. It has been upheld by the Illinois Supreme Court on numerous occasions. So we can talk about solutions that involve cutting people's benefits, but that's not reality. That's not how we're going to get out of this. And that's one of the things that I get probably the angriest about, is to hear people talking about that as though that's an option when it is not for us as legislators. So at some point, we're going to have to figure out how to make those pension payments that weren't made in the past to make the state whole, and there's various tools that we can use to do that. But the idea that we're just going to tell everyone who's on a state pension, hey, sorry, yeah, we were people in the legislature were irresponsible, so we're going to cut all your benefits. That's not going to happen. So we need to start having adult conversations where the grown-ups decide the difficult decisions that we have to make are going to have to occur for us to really address this issue. No one's looking forward to it, but it's high time that we knuckle down and say this is what we have to do in order to solve this problem. So, and we will, because we're heading in the right direction.
Any other questions from people in the audience? There's one in the...
Hi, I'm Glenn Cherry. I'm a retired embedded software engineer. I've been working with the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion ministry here. And we've been addressing nuts and bolts issues of criminal reform. A long-term goal that I have personally that's come out of these discussions is to, we've noticed that we are expecting our policemen to be both rescuers of the mentally ill and policemen who have to deal with violent, extremely violent offenders. And they have to make a split-second decision when they show up on a scene and decide, is this person mentally ill, or is he possibly a criminal offender that might kill me? And these are conflicting roles, and it's inevitable that there will be unfortunate shootings coming out of this of innocent people that are mentally ill and not criminals. So it would be useful to use people's knowledge of who are intimately familiar with these problems, who are reporting these things to 911, if we could leverage that information and take mentally ill people out of the criminal justice prosecution routine that comes with police cars and policemen, and possibly create another bucket under 911 where the incident is immediately referred to mental health trained professionals, because they are the only ones that really have enough training to deal with this. Policemen are doing too many things to deal with that. The problem is long-term, it's a long-term issue because there's such a shortage. There's always been a shortage of mental health practitioners. Social workers have been used to help plug the gaps, and that's probably not a bad idea. But what can we do long-term to improve the mental health system's financing and come up and train more people in mental health services so that they would eventually be available for this kind of thing if we did this at some point?
That's a fantastic question, and the answer is that what we need to do. We actually have a lot of mental health professionals. We have had many, as Leader Manley said, back in the day, we had many more organizations that unfortunately went under or went bankrupt because their bills, I mean, simply they weren't getting paid through the state of Illinois. So it's not a question of not having enough available mental health professionals. We have to give the resources to mental health treatment and try to stop these situations before they end up calling the police. You made the statement that actually gets to the heart of the problem. We're asking officers to do too much. In the old days, officers had a very specific function, the beat cop, responding to, crimes. Now, they are everything. They're social service organizations. They're expected to handle things that 30 years ago, police would have never been expected to handle. And part of the reason for that is because we're not funding anything else adequately. So what happens is that your last resort for what should be being handled up front as mental health treatment, as counseling, as substance abuse treatment, all these different things. Now we've decided that we're not going to put money towards that, and then so the agency that ends up having to deal with everything is the police department, and that's obviously it's upside down from where it needs to be. I remember hearing a joke about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and the deinstitutionalization that followed that, where we decided that people who were mentally ill should not be, in institutions. And again, unintended consequences. What seemed like a good idea and something helpful at the time turns out to be kind of a nightmare, because those people that perhaps might have been in institutions back in the 60s are the ones who are having incidents with police where someone gets shot, someone gets killed. So you're right that there's no quick solution to this. That's the unfortunate thing. Even if we get to a point where a mental health professional, and we're already starting to do this, where a mental health professional will accompany an officer to the scene, we're never going to, I don't think in the short term we're ever going to get to a point where only mental health professionals will be showing up because of the risk of physical danger. So for right now, we need to simply put more resources into the things that avoid these situations, because we're doing it completely backwards right now, and that's going to take time.
Any other questions? Yes?
Thank you. So first of all, thank you guys for coming out here and taking time out away from your families on a Sunday like this. Mental is definitely a big thing that's resource. So the two other topics I just want to ask questions about: bullying, specifically in schools. I experienced that myself growing up. If you don't wear the same shoes as somebody else, or clothing, or if you're not the same religion or political, how can we that are near and dear to my heart? Pets in shelters, pet stores. I get it. You need to make money. However, how can we get the word out to people? More pets from shelters, and also spay and neuter your pets. Thank you.
I'm going to address the bullying thing. I think I suffer with anxiety too. I got to tell you, I don't know anybody who does. I think I do. Now, I'm not feeling anxious right now. I feel very comfortable sitting here, but I have those moments, almost like a gripping feeling when things get too much. I think all people, I think that's like our innate ability to know things are intense, right? I think we all have a different level of when it's really like causing us to not be able to function. So far, we've addressed many things regarding bullying, but this is how I feel about it. We can't tolerate it. I'm going to say something that I'm old school, right? If I see somebody bullying somebody else, I'm going to say something. And and you hope that it doesn't escalate into something. I don't know that we can legislate people being nice to each other. I don't know if we can legislate that people should stand up for one another, but I know it's true. The legislature isn't the place for everything, but certainly we as people can lead by example. Now, obviously, when you get involved on behalf of another person, there's a chance something bad could happen. But I think it's even worse if you do nothing. I mean, that's just the way I feel. That's not a legislator, that's a human being talking to human beings. I'm not going to sit by and let that happen around me. That's just how I am. And I'm Italian, so watch out. Anyway, so I don't know, but I think, and maybe this has nothing to do with your question, but I need to say it. You know, we talk about the importance of mental health and people intervening, and our police officers have such a huge, 99% of those people in uniform are professional and good people, and we need to support them, right? They have a huge job. It's more dangerous now than it's ever been. We have to support them too. The good officers that are trying to keep our families safe. We need to help make sure they remain safe. And as we work through this interesting time in American history, you know, and Illinois is no stranger to the things, you know, the social unrest that's happened over the last couple years. We have to try to address that. We can't ignore it anymore. We're not going to do that anymore. We're not ignoring these situations. We want to partner with law enforcement. We want to stand shoulder to shoulder. All of us want to stand shoulder to shoulder with law enforcement to help them protect our communities. But we don't want to ignore some of the really awful things that are going on out there if you're willing to empathize with people, right? So together we're going to get there. But don't make no mistake, some of the people that are presenting with mental illness, either by abuse of alcohol, drugs, this all feeds the same beast. Everybody's trying to cope with something. And so I'll go back to what I said earlier, education, and it's got to be the funding. We've got to provide the services. You want to talk about the animals?
I can talk about the animals, and then I'm going to go on my anti-social media rant. As far as the animals go,
as we're on social media,
right? Exactly. This is good social media, though. Yes, as far as the animals go, both Leader Manley and I supported a bill that dealt with so-called puppy mills recently, and so we are definitely taking steps to try to make sure that all the pets are spayed and neutered and healthy, and that we're not encouraging these pole barn buildings full of trapped animals to be run by anyone. So I think we've made a lot of progress in that regards, and in fact now we're working on how to handle breeders from out of state. Whether we're working on a way to make sure that they're certified, that there are in a way that where we can't send our inspectors here in Illinois to every facility outside the state of Illinois to do inspections, so that we're working on working with some other states for reciprocity in order to handle that, so that we know that the animals that are coming in have been treated well, and are coming from licensed and certified breeders and et cetera. So we are making, I think, from what I have seen since I have gotten in, I think we've made great strides in animal welfare, here. An anti-cruelty law that Leader Manley worked on with Will County State's Attorney Jim Glasgow back in the day. I mean, we have made some real strides in terms of our treatment of animals. Bullying that's a tough one, and I wish we had Senator Loughran Capel here, because she's an educator, has been on the school board, and has probably had more hands-on experiences with bullying situations that we have. But I will be honest, even before some of the recent headlines came out, I was really not happy with what I was reading about Facebook and the algorithms, and how basically what the big tech companies had found out is that when we are at each other's throats, we buy more products, we get on the internet more, we engage in behavior that can make profits for large companies. And unfortunately,
we're seeing some of the effects of that now. I mean, I don't, and I can't speak for anyone else, but I get some of the nastiest messages through social media, and then if I go to that person's, house and knock on their door, they're nice as pie to me, and they're very apologetic. But there's something about that, whether it's the, perceived anonymity of the internet, or the fact that they're reacting to other things that they've read about because someone wants them to be scared and spend money. And so, it is unfortunate, but I really think we all need to put down the devices and spend a lot more time talking to one another and a lot less time tweeting and emailing and other things. So,
I have a question here that was submitted before we gathered. There are 5 youth detention centers in the state. Are there any plans to make any changes, maybe possibly close some due to low numbers or the cost to maintain them? Or maybe would one detention center be enough for the current population or the population that's needed?
Juvenile detentions are going down. They're heading in a smaller direction. I believe there are, don't hold me to this, but I believe there are plans to close at least one of those facilities potentially, but not immediately. We're talking years down the road. We are moving away from juvenile detention as much as we can. Unfortunately, there are situations in which it can't be avoided, but we've made a lot of changes to our juvenile system, and we're trying to figure out ways of making sure that we're not giving up on kids, that we're trying to provide them with a path towards a productive adulthood instead of some of these bad trends from the 90s where we locked everybody up and threw away the key. So.
That question came from me, and we're spending like $140,000 a year per youth, and we're not spending $20,000 to educate a child. And we're putting a lot of money. There's only, if I got my numbers right, there's like only 113 youth right now. And to have them spread out in 5 facilities seems rather absurd to me and to other people. And what I would like to do, not here in this moment, but to be able to speak to you and this, Representative Senator, because this is something that's very dear and near to my heart. And I'd love to do that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
You ever heard of race? I don't know, but Race Amity Day? Any of you?
No.
I don't believe I have.
Okay. There's only a number of states like Massachusetts that their governor declared Race Amity Day, AMITI. And we have a small group of people in Illinois that have started sending proclamations to Governor Pritzker about it. And what race is bringing people of different together and not just talking, but going into each other's homes or going to have a cup of coffee, and the governor's office would encourage that one of the ways that people of different racial backgrounds can develop empathy and understanding to sign on to that. So I would love to talk.
I love that idea. Can I just do a plug for my office? Something that we did, that's something that we're currently doing. This is kind of on the heels of the murder of George Floyd and all the civil unrest that happened afterwards. You try to figure out what you can do. What can I do? How can I make things better? Because I think we all want that at the end of the day. So in my office, through the hard work of my staff, we put together a program that meets monthly. Ideally, we'd be in a room this big, and we'd all be in a circle, but we've had to do it hybrid remote, and then we had to go to remote, but it's called We Did It Together. And it's small W-E, capital D-I-D, it, small, together. And the DID stands for Diversity, Inclusion, Discussion. So the first two were, what is it like to be black in America? And I had some speakers, and every time we do this, we do it once a month. Every time we do this, we learn something, how to improve it. The first time we had 2 speakers, dynamic, awesome speakers. The next time we had 1. But what I've found through this is most people want to understand the things that make them uncomfortable. This meeting happens over a veil of, like I always tell them, there's a dome over us as people, whether we're remote or in person. Nobody can disrespect anyone. You are free of retaliation on your views, but you must be respectful and be received and conduct yourself respectfully. It has been eye-opening. It has been life-changing. It has been amazing for me, and have heard great feedback from the people that have attended. So the first 2, I've had 3. The first 2 were being black in America. The third one, it was session 1 and 2. The third one was being a member of the LGBTQIA+ community, and that was the last one in October. So we're going to move forward. We're going to keep doing it. So that's kind of like a mini version of what you're talking about. We all get together and ask people to ask those uncomfortable questions respectfully in an effort to understand and learn and appreciate. If nothing else, to have your questions answered that you don't feel like you can ask anyone else, because we all walk around, we don't want to be offensive, we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but we want to know, right? So we're trying to provide this. So I like that idea. I'm going to ask the governor's office if anybody is working on that. I love that idea. Thank you.
I have another question that was submitted prior to, and it was my understanding, excuse me, is that a decision has been made about what to do with the Commons area on Route 53, just north of I-55. Is that something that you are involved with, or is that more local?
Well, I'd have to see, I'm trying to picture exactly where that is on the map. Is this at the intersection of 53 and where it continues as Joliet Road, or?
Behind Family Square, the former Family Square restaurant.
Okay, that I'm not, there may have been some local decisions that were made. I'm not aware of anything.
I know something about that only because I know that's under the jurisdiction of the Village of Bolingbrook. So that's a village issue. And I know that property, that shopping center there has been a concern for many years because it's mostly empty and it's not maintained well. So yeah, I know it's something that the village has been trying to address for a long time, and I happen to know that they're actively involved in talking with the owners of that property to address that.
And the other question that was submitted, I believe probably is a county level, but I'm not sure. We all just read that Hidden Lakes and Wayland Lakes area has been taken over by the Will County Forest Preserve. And somebody wanted to know if anything about changes that might be happening with that, but I think that just happened, so I don't know.
Yeah, those would be governed by whatever intergovernmental agreements facilitated that transfer. I would doubt there would be any significant changes, but again, I'm speculating.
Thank you. Questions from the audience? We are a little over time, not that that should inhibit questions, but.
There's one.
Hey, Susan.
The graduated income tax was on the ballot, and it failed, which made no sense at all. Is there a plan to put it on the ballot again? Is there a time limit between, because this is a constitutional amendment, right?
I'm not aware of any.
That is the best solution to the budget problem.
I cannot disagree with your statement, but I am not aware of any plans to put it back on the ballot anytime soon.
Most of things that fail that are and John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, there was a huge amount of money put into scaring the life out of people over this constitutional change. Whenever you see people putting a lot of money into something, it's important to them. So why would the very rich spend so many resources on trying to get people to do one thing or another? I would say in any diabolical plan, follow the money. Always follow the money. The answer is always there. It wasn't in the best interest of the very wealthy to pass that. And so they spent money, because in the long run, it was cheaper for them to spend money convincing everyone that this is the worst thing in the world. Even though the facts, the truth, was that most people, especially in my district, would feel, even if it was slight, a tax decrease. I couldn't convince anybody that that was the truth. We're living in a nightmare of false information and fear-mongering, and it's hard to reach people once they've decided that they've seen it on TV, so it must be true, or they read it on Facebook, so it must be true. In people's defense, nobody knows who to believe or trust anymore. I read this on a website. Well, guess what? There's fraudulent websites out there, and fraud's being perpetrated constantly on us. If they weren't successful, they wouldn't do it. So we're kind of we're at a crossroads where people are going to have to spend more time checking multiple sources, and I don't know if you guys have a lot of time to do that, or just trusting the people that you know. It's almost like people have forgotten who their trusted friends or neighbors were. We've gone through quite a social change over the last 5-6 years, I'll just say.
So, obviously one of the problems that we had going into that was, our unfunded liabilities and some of the things that had occurred in the past. And so we faced kind of an uphill struggle. I would say look to Minnesota as an example of how progressive income tax can help your economy and can make things more equitable because, in Minnesota, education is funded mostly through, the state income tax, whereas we have it through property taxes, and we're trying to get back towards a better system. But Minnesota has it now. They have much higher income tax rates, but their property taxes are far lower, and they have far less problems, and their economy's going great guns, and they're building and doing all sorts of great things up in Minnesota using their graduated income tax, which has different levels of taxation depending on your income. So it's really unfortunate because I think we lost a big opportunity to head in that direction, to move school funding away from property taxes, and towards the income tax. We lost that opportunity. And so, can it occur again in the future? Yes, it can. As far as I'm aware, it won't be this year. It's going to have to be, probably 2023 maybe or something like that. It's going to have to be in the future if we want to try it. But I agree. Look to Minnesota as an example of success. Sure, without going into party affiliation, there will be information from all of your elected officials if something like that comes up again.
All right, I'm going to say we have to end. We've gone over our time, which is wonderful. Oh my gosh, wonderful discussions. I think maybe the fact that we've gone so much over our time is an indication that we need to do this again. Huh? So thank you very much for being here and for your questions, and thank you.
Thank you.